we talk about a talking mongoose? That seems like a bit of a palate cleanser. I don't know if anyone knows about this. Again, start this off with a reminiscence from my past. Back, when I was at school, a magazine came out called The Unexplained, and it was. I've still got all my copies in the attic. It would have been great if I'd actually brought them down and I could, have a scan of it. But it was all full of stories about ghosts and UFOs and all the good stuff. And I was going to say that at the time I was a highly credible child and I believed all this stuff, but at the time now I'm a highly credible 52-year-old and I still believe all the stuff, really. But there was one story in it, and I don't think it was in the first episode, but it was in the first couple of episodes, first few issues, and it was about Jef the Talking Mongoose. And it was like, even at the time I remember looking at it and going, I'm making this up. This can't be real. This a talking like in a cartoon, like a talking mongoose. But no, there is a case from the early 1930s from the Isle of Man, which is, for anyone watching who doesn't know, is a island off the northwest of the UK that's kind of like a separate country, but yeah, it is kind of a separate country, sort of. I never quite understood that. I know that they had they sort of had sort of corporal punishment for criminals until quite recently, and they had their own coins, and they have a motorbike rally. Anyway, yeah, in the early 1930s on the Isle of Man, in a place called, and I struggle with pronouncing something else, and I've just realised now, because of the way I've got this, I can't see the chat, so I'll just move the screen over. Yeah, now what was that? Yeah, Dorlish Kashin, a place called Dorlish Kashin, which apparently a remote hilltop farmstead, which is apparently Manx, which is the language spoken on the Isle of Man, for Kashin Gap, which was home to the Irving family. Now, the Irving family were a once wealthy family from Liverpool, and I don't know why this tickled me so much when I was reading it before, but they lost a lot when the piano business collapsed, and I just had a vision of sort of like the Laurel and Hardy thing with the piano bouncing down the stairs. But no, so they moved to this remote hilltop house in the Barrens of the Isle of Man, and there was Jim Irving, his wife Margaret. I am struggling today because it's all these things to try and pronounce. Boiree, Doirrey, Boiree, I think it's pronounced, who was their 12-year-old daughter. Anyway, sort of like they were adapting to their new life as I don't know what exactly they were doing in the hilltop house, but no longer sort of like importing or exporting pianos, I take it, because I don't imagine there was the Isle of Man was a hub of the international piano business. One day, 12-year-old God, how do I try and pronounce it? Voirie heard something in the walls. A sort of like howling, spitting, growling sound. So she got Jim to sort of come and have a look for it, and he tried to flush it out and set traps, and to no avail. Anyway, then whatever this fairy thing was in the walls, it suddenly started to talk. Now, it popped out. Now, although everyone heard it, only very saw it when it appeared, and it was like a yellow mongoose, and it introduced everyone. So its name was Jef. Now, this all at this point sounds, deeply suspect. And believe me, it gets even more suspect. Yeah, not only did it talk, but it was it sang. It apparently sung hymns, some part of a Spanish lullaby, I think, or or folk song. I can't remember exactly what. And something called I don't know, Moonlight something or other. I wish I could. Yeah, and its apparently singing voice was like very high pitched, childish, but perfectly in tune. Yeah. I found a description of it here. It was amongst the notes. A small rat with yellow fur and a large bushy tail, which is kind of like the picture I've got up there. As it introduced itself as Jef, it also gave some some contradictory explanations about what it was. It would say that it was just a very clever mongoose, or an earthbound spirit, a ghost in the form of a mongoose, and this one's really good. The fifth dimension. It would say it was the fifth dimension, but it did warn. Whatever it was, he said, I'm extra clever, but not always kind. Ooh. Right, so yeah, as I say, it would sing. It would often tell stories about when the family were at work, how it went into town. It would go to local factories, which, according to this, there were local factories. That does seem a bit suspect to me, that there will be local factories near a desolate hilltop farmhouse, but apparently it went to local factories and stole the workmen's sandwiches there. Now, sometimes though, it would Jef would get a bit irate, and as I say, because he was not always kind, and he would sort of like chuck around furniture. So obviously, I don't know if that was like physically pick up furniture with his little hands and toss it around, or whether it was by some sort of like psychic powers. But yes, Jef would do this, and to point, Jim would get his entire family and barricade themselves in the bedroom, but Jef would be banging on the door, and the door would be bulging off the hinges. And apparently one night he just crashed it open. Now, the thing is, it wasn't always, trouble for the Evans, because it did do nice things as well. Not only did it sing and entertain them in this absolutely lovely but high-pitched and slightly disturbing singing voice, it would tell jokes, do impressions. Apparently, it gave racing tips, so perhaps that's why how they supported themselves after the piano business collapsed. Perhaps they were successfully gambling. on the say so of Jef the Talking Mongoose. Um, but also what it would do is it would catch rabbits and bring them in for Mrs. Irving to cook. Apparently, according to, and I bet I'm getting this name wrong, Voyuri, it would strangle them. Sorry, I'm sorry, I shouldn't laugh, but it would strangle them with its little hands, and and bring them in to cook. And she would reward Jef with little treats of little bits of bacon and chocolate, because despite strangling rabbits, um, he, Jef didn't like rabbits. He liked bacon and chocolate. Now, this sort of like, carried on for a while, and it became quite the talk of the local, the local area, and stories, stories circulated as people came to visit. No one saw Jef. I mean, there were a couple of people who perhaps reported noticing her scurrying and that, but no one actually saw Jef. Lots of people heard him though, distinctly, clear as day. They heard him, in the house, in another place. It was also that this sort of like that more stories about Jeff's. Jef came up with more stories about his origin. He claimed that he was a very clever, as I said, a very clever mongoose, but that he was born in Delhi in 1852. Now, funnily enough, a neighbouring farmer had brought some mongooses to that region of the Isle of Man to deal with an excess of rabbits. So, that there was some evidence of a non-indigenous species of mongoose being resident on the Isle of Man. So, I mean, I suppose that's one in the plausibility column, minus the about 100 in the implausibility column. Now, just oh yes, it was also read out loud from the local newspaper to them. That was another thing. And just give me a second. Yeah. Oh, I found the name of the song he would sing, which was apparently Carolina Moon, which I don't know myself. I have to listen to that sometime. Also, apparently, he knew a lewd version of Home on the Range that he picked up from bus traffic. Oh, gee, yeah. As you can tell, I've got like several different sort of like accounts here. He knew a lewd version of Home on the Range that he picked up from bus drivers. I have not been able to find the lyrics to this particular song. I will update you in a future stream if I do track down the lewd version of Home on the Range. Yeah. But apparently Margaret Evan got very offended by this, and she shouted at him and said, "You are Jef, you are no animal." And he, at this point, he made another claim about his identity. He said, "No, I am the Holy Ghost." So maybe we're straying into exorcist territory here. I don't know. Now this is where you will perhaps have, if you've not heard the story of Jef before, you might have heard of it tangentially. On one particular occasion, Jef decided to make. Oh no, the report of the time said he made a nuisance of himself by sighing and groaning loudly for 30 minutes without pause. Now, I think we can probably guess what the prudish papers of 1930 were alluding to when they say he made a nuisance of himself by sighing and groaning loudly for 30 minutes. And then, but when he finished, he and the Irvings asked him what he was doing. He refused to tell them what he was doing, but he did tell them, "I did it for the devilment," which is a phrase that I've seen circulated around on various things online, but I didn't know it was originally tracked back to Jef the Talking Mongoose. Oh right, and before we get on to the next bit, there's next bit about deep Jef lore. 3 more stories to us. Jef he claimed to be, yes, I'm Maggie the Witch woman, the Zulu woman, the Honolulu woman. So yeah, so as Jef became more famous, and stories spread sort of like to the mainland and even to London, the famous psychic investigator Harry Price came to the house to investigate Jef, and found it was absolutely 100% real. There was a talking mongoose. No. He found that due to a peculiarity of construction of the house, there was wood panelling with a large air gap between that and the wall, and effectively the entire of the house acted like a voice box. Also, coincidentally, Violet, the 12-year-old daughter, had taught herself ventriloquy. Ventriloquy? Is that the right way? Taught herself to be a ventriloquist. Now, Violet, even up until her dying days in her 80s, claimed it was all real. She didn't do anything. There was no trickery to it. But the Harry Price and the rest of the sort of like ghost hunting fraternity pretty much came up with the idea that they had 2 potential explanations. It was either, at the most likely level, by replaying tricks, possibly aided and abetted by her father, who was looking to make some money to help pay for their lifestyle, having lost their quite affluent income from piano importing, or be very as a 12-year-old girl just sort of like entering onto the cusp of adolescence, was perhaps ideally placed, according to the theories, to generate poltergeist activity. So these were the 2 theories, that Jef was either a hoax or a poltergeist, and really, everyone thought Jef was a hoax. So that was it. Yeah, I think it says here an interviewer for Fate magazine managed to track Vernie down in 1970, and her exact words were, "Yes, there was a little animal who talked, and it did all those other things." He said he was a mongoose and we should call him Jef. But I do wish he'd left us alone. And that's pretty much it for the story of Jef the Talking Mongoose, except I dug up a little piece of trivia here. The first, let's see. Now, the BBC used to have a magazine called The Listener, and the first editor of The Listener, a man called Richard S. Lambert, left in 1939, after successfully suing Sir Cecil Levita for slander over allegations he was unfit for the job because of his credulity in believing Jef the Talking Mongoose. So yes, it's even Jef's words. Jef the Talking Mongoose words even resounded in the highest courts of the UK. And thank you for watching. Bye. Bye, thanks for watching.